Hey everyone, welcome back to Faith Talks, where we have real conversations about faith, life, and everything in between.
We're so glad you're joining us today. This episode is especially meaningful as we reflect on the resurrection of Jesus and something we don't always talk about enough: unbelief.
That's right. Today's episode is based on a message by Pastor Kyewoon Choi, and it comes from Mark 16:1-13, a powerful passage that shows us both the reality of the resurrection and the very human struggle to believe it.
Let's start with a question. What would you do if Jesus suddenly appeared in front of you?
That's a big one. I mean, I'd like to say I'd immediately fall down and worship.
Same here. But if we're honest, some of us might hesitate. Like, is this real? Am I imagining this?
Exactly. And what's surprising is that reaction isn't new. Even Jesus' own followers struggled to believe he had risen.
In Mark 16, we see three women: Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of James, and Salome, going to the tomb early in the morning.
They're carrying spices, right? Which tells us something important. They expected to find a dead body.
Exactly. They loved Jesus. They were devoted, but they were still looking for him in the wrong place.
And that hits home, doesn't it? Because people still do that today.
Yeah. Some people see Jesus as just a teacher, or a moral example, or a historical figure.
But not as the risen Lord.
And the message of the resurrection is clear.
He is not here. He is risen.
You won't find the real Jesus among the dead. He's alive.
Inside the tomb, the women see an angel who tells them, "Do not be amazed. He has risen."
I love that. It's like the angel is saying, this shouldn't shock you. This is what God does.
Right. If God can create the universe, raising the dead isn't exactly a stretch.
And here's something important Pastor Choi pointed out. God didn't prove the resurrection through science or experiments.
He revealed it through witnesses.
That's huge, because our faith isn't blind. It's based on testimony. Real people who saw the risen Jesus.
It's kind of like a courtroom. The jury wasn't there, but they listened to credible witnesses.
And in this case, there were many. People who had nothing to gain and everything to lose.
Some even died for what they saw.
So the question becomes, not is there evidence, but will we trust the witnesses?
Now, here's where it gets really interesting and, honestly, a little surprising.
Yeah, because when Mary Magdalene tells the disciples that Jesus is alive,
They don't believe her.
not at all. And even when more people report seeing Jesus, they still don't believe.
That's wild. These are the disciples. They walked with Jesus for years.
They saw miracles. They saw him raise the dead.
And yet, they struggled to believe in his resurrection.
Why do you think that is?
I think it comes down to expectation. There's this famous study called the invisible gorilla. People are so focused on counting basketball passes that they completely miss a guy in a gorilla suit walking across the screen.
I've seen that. It's crazy.
And that's what happened here. The disciples were expecting a dead body, not a risen Savior.
Their expectations were too small for what God was actually doing. And honestly, we can fall into the same trap.
Absolutely. Sometimes we limit God based on what seems realistic to us.
But the resurrection reminds us, God operates beyond our expectations.
And here's the beautiful part. Jesus doesn't give up on his disciples,
He meets them where they are,
even in their doubt, even in their confusion.
and he still does that today.
Maybe not always in dramatic ways, but through his word, through people, through moments that just stay with you.
Jesus once said, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed."
That's us,
We weren't there at the empty tomb.
but we have the testimony. We have the word.
So the question isn't just, did it happen?
The question is, do you believe it?
Are we still looking for Jesus in the tomb?
Or are we trusting the risen Lord?
The message of the resurrection is simple but life-changing.
The tomb is empty.
The stone is rolled away.
Jesus is alive.
And he invites each of us, not just to know that truth.
but to respond to it.
So today, if you're listening and wrestling with doubt, you're not alone.
Even the disciples were there.
But don't stay there.
Take a step. Trust the testimony. Seek the risen Christ.
Thanks again to Pastor Kyewoon Choi for the message that inspired today's conversation.
And thank you for joining us on Faith Talks.
We'll see you next time.